Welcome to another episode of Amplify Your Business. Today, I'm talking to Julia Kirouac. She is the founder of Nude Foods, a incredibly healthy snack alternative that I think is just absolutely tasty, beyond tasty. So this stuff is really blow your mind good. And I'm really excited to talk about the journey that Julia has been on. So welcome to the show, Julia.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so first off, I just have to get into some of the food here because you sent me some samples. This thing just blows my mind. So this is a chocolate covered banana, and it has like this spongy kind of texture, like almost like a gummy or a jujube or something like that. Like it's just absolutely incredible, and I couldn't believe that it was a banana that's in there. And so, how do you do that?
Well, if I told you, we would have to kill you. No, so it's just dried banana, and we cover in chocolate. So kind of at the forefront of everything that I do when I'm doing R&D is just what's the most pure products we can make possible, and we literally just slice up a dried banana and cover it in 100% chocolate. So that's pretty pure, 2 ingredients.
Totally. And so most people, when they think about a dried banana, they're probably thinking about the dried banana chips, right? The dehydrated chips, which are crunchy and so on. These aren't. And so they're incredibly tasty, easy to snack on. And I had to actually fight my son to pull these out of his hands because he was going to eat the whole bag, so that I still had a few for the show. But yeah, like so tasty, and 2 ingredients, like you said. And this is the thing that I love about everything else that you're doing is, it's paleo, it's gluten-free, non-GMO, and even the cheesy ones are vegan, which is absolutely fantastic for a guy like me who can't really handle cheese. So tell me about the origin story of this. How did you come up with these recipes, and why is there a focus on, nude foods?
Yeah, so I'm a holistic nutritionist. And before that, I actually was a ballet dancer. I was living in the United States, and I ended up having some pretty bad injuries, and that kind of ended my career. And I was there, this is going to date me, but I was in the US doing my audition season during the height of the 2008 recession. So there was unfortunately no arts funding. Everything was being pulled. And so I kind of moved back home with my tail between my legs and kind of had to figure out, okay, so what next? I just dedicated the last 20 plus years to a career that's no longer going to happen. So I was really interested in health and nutrition. Being a ballet dancer, I really had to focus on how do I optimally perform and get enough energy without getting overweight. Unfortunately, that is very much a focus. So I was always delving into nutrition and kind of raw food and veganism. And when I was living in San Francisco, I was exposed to a lot of hippie ideas, which was awesome. And I just thought raw food was the coolest thing. It was like wizardry. Like you could take fresh fruits and vegetables and seeds and turn them into these incredible desserts or incredible dishes that were so unique and so creative. So I really, really kind of latched onto that concept. And when I came back home, there was really nothing else that was, vegan and whole food and really good quality and tasted good too. At least that I could see in the stores at that time. This is quite a while ago. I know veganism has come a long way since, but there really wasn't a lot available. So I figured, no one else is doing it. So if I'm going to do something. And I wanted a bakery at one point, but I was like, I just couldn't sleep at night knowing that I was putting more sugar and more baked goods out into the world, given how prevalent diabetes and other health issues are in almost every family in North America. Absolutely. So I just wouldn't have been able to sleep at night. I damn my integrity. I probably would have been much richer, but I just couldn't sleep at night doing that. So I was like, if I'm going to do something, it has to be the best quality possible and get the pinnacle of what packaged products can reach. And that's raw food. So that's kind of, what I did. And I started my business halfway into nutrition school, and the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah. So it must be a bit of a challenge though, to go the raw food, very limited ingredient path, right? To manage to make something that is actually going to have the shelf life, transportability, and still taste great, right? And so it must have been a lot of trial and error, I suspect, as you're going through all the recipes and that.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I mean, it's amazing that you can make things pretty simply and package it. And dehydration, similar to brining and salting and a lot of the things that humanity has done for millennia, it is one of the oldest forms of preservation without any chemical additives. So from that perspective, we were pretty lucky, and the product's light and easy to ship. So there are some pluses there. But what I will say is, from a long shelf life aspect and maintaining the integrity of all of the flavor profiles, because we aren't using any natural or artificial preservatives or flavor enhancers or anything like that, it's definitely a little bit different and a challenge for the consumer to kind of get used to, especially when I'm competing with other snacks that are very kind of amped up in regards to, your taste bud impact, or the type of preservation methods or things that they may have that really play on, your brain and making them more addictive. We don't use any of that. So we literally make our products the exact same as you would in your kitchen. So to scale that is very unique and very different. And definitely I had no idea how kind of trailblazing and innovative that was, for good and bad. It's very challenging in the food industry to come up against all of these processed products.
Yeah, completely. Because obviously there's all that specialization is going to take a little bit more, resources. It's going to be more costly to do. And so from a price point too, you're bumping into it. And then, like you said, we've kind of been programmed over, the last few decades of having all these processed additives that are designed to get you hooked, to get you addicted to it, to get you craving and eating more, right? And so yeah, to strip down to the nude product, to the nude food, that is a little bit of a shock for a lot of people. Now, myself, I grew up on a farm, and my mother and my grandmother all had like huge gardens, and so I grew up on very much a whole food diet, very little preservatives, and we had the root cellar, and we had all the canning and everything else, right? So we were carrying through our garden produce through as much of the winter as we possibly could. And so for me, this is wonderful to have this explosion of really healthy food. And I want to talk about that just real briefly too, because you started this in 2010, right? Experimenting and going through all this, and then really launched the business. I think you said in 2012, 2013 is when you incorporated, or sorry, not 2012. Yes. Yeah, 2012, 2013. Okay.
Yeah.
So I got the dates right. Now, this, that's 10 years ago. And so there's been a lot of other companies really trying to tackle this vegan and more natural, limited ingredient market now than what there was 10 years ago. And so you were one of the forerunners. You were one of the founders in this category in a lot of respect. How has that been for you as you see a lot of these, in some cases, big companies now jumping into that?
Yeah. So to touch on, I guess, the explosion, I would say there is a lot more variety and a lot more interest in this space. And with that, a lot more financing and a lot of money. Unfortunately, what we're seeing, and I say unfortunately, because even if it blew me out of the water and completely copied my products, great. If someone else can do it better or with better marketing and better reach, awesome. Like I'm no longer needed. Let's make people healthy en masse. But unfortunately, what I've seen is kind of the opposite. I've seen a lot of greenwashing and a lot of health washing with all of these millions and millions of dollars and sometimes billions that have flooded into the space, where they're still trying to claim that their product is, holier than thou and as pure as possible, and checks all these boxes, and unfortunately they don't. And we've seen a lot of Franken foods kind of still come on the scene, but to instead of serve a purpose of, upping or enhancing, I should say, the flavor of like a beef jerky or something like that, they're just all being translated and put into plant-based foods. So there's a lot of things that are still really questionable in the space. And a lot of flavor enhancing, a lot of natural flavors, a lot of processing, and really just a lot of beautiful marketing and messaging perspectives, which obviously you would know about better than I. But yeah, there's a lot of money in the space, which I think is kind of convoluting it and taking the whole, movement back a little bit instead of pushing it forward. It's kind of confusing people a little bit more.
So with all these new entrants in, we then I think see also, just a overall increased awareness of this category. And so does that increase, everybody's sales, and because the demand, just having more advertising, more marketing, more exposure will increase the demand for this? Or is it something where you're finding that it's getting so convoluted because, like you said, there's some that are doing the healthy washing, but it's not actually comparative to your product? Is it pulling down your sales because of that? So is high tide, rising water lifting all ships, so to speak, and you're still benefiting from that?
Right.
Or is it?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. I think kind of the way
Yeah.
I look at it, and I've done presentations this way, is I look at, at least I didn't grow up on a farm. So I grew up on, like McDonald's and Twinkies and all these kind of really processed foods. So I think now, being a millennial, I think there is still a lot of desire for those types of packaged processed foods. But to have them more natural. So what I kind of look at it is we're in CPG kind of 2.0 right now, where it's kind of the pendulum is swinging slightly in this direction, where people still want convenience and shitty food, to be blunt, but they're not quite ready to go to full on hippie type of thing, where I'm kind of more CPG 3.0. So I look at it as it's not really dragging our stuff down. It's just kind of meeting the consumer where they are right now. So I think, there's a lot of people who, maybe in the mainstream would never, ever be interested in veganism or, keto eating or paleo or any of these things. And a lot of people still don't know what the hell those are, which is fine. But they would never have touched these types of products if it wasn't for these types of big companies and big money pushing them to the forefront in the mainstream. But at the same time, I think it's going to take time for the consumer, if they have any interest, to truly learn about what's in their food, what's in these packaged products that are, deemed as being healthy, and are they actually what they say they are? And then if people are interested on continuing that journey, we're just a little further down. In the journey, where it's like, okay, now that I understand that, these cheese puffs that happen to be paleo are still processed and empty calories, I actually want to feed my body some more nutrient dense products. Yes, it's a little bit more of an investment because it's real food, but I'm willing to do that. So I think we're a little bit further down on the health journey, so to speak.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. So let's talk about the 10 years or so that you've been selling this stuff. So tell us about the journey. What kind of lessons have you had along the way? What kind of mistakes did you make? What kind of stories can you share with us that some of us can relate to, and maybe others can hopefully maybe avoid some of those mistakes or learn something from what your experiences have been?
Yeah, so many mistakes. It would fill probably numerous episodes, but obviously I'll try and be brief. So I think one of my number one mistakes, it was definitely a different world, like you said, from a food perspective when I was first starting. So a lot of people didn't really understand or get like what we were making. And I think a lot of people still don't. So mistake number one being like, probably 20 years too early type of thing. So I think, there's positives and negatives, but generally speaking, being too early doesn't really help. So that's one issue. I think number two, I wasn't really great at building a network. I like to think of myself as super friendly, which I am, but it's a bit tricky when you're a solo founder and, we make the product too. So I was always kind of stuck in the weeds, so to speak, with putting out fires and really doing operations. And I wasn't really in the forefront, networking and getting out there and, selling and all of that type of stuff from a marketing aspect. So I think that's definitely been a mistake that's kind of held us back. And I always kind of, even in school, like I kind of created myself as being like this little island. Like, I'm self-sufficient. I don't need anybody else. I can do it all. And that was a huge mistake. If I could go back and talk to my 22-year-old self, I would say definitely don't do that. Ask questions, speak to people. Like, people aren't going to think you're stupid because you're asking questions. And I think that was a big stigma that I had as being a young female entrepreneur who, again, was a ballet dancer, and people might think are stupid coming in with no prior CPG experience into a very much a sausage party. It was lots of men. I was thinking if I was trying to build these connections or, that they might, try and date me. And like, I definitely had that, which was icky, or they wouldn't give me help in the way that I was looking for it. So I kind of had to do it all on my own. So I would say if I could go back, don't worry about all that. Build a network and work really, really hard to, connect with people authentically and really build strong connections.
Yeah.
That was probably two of my biggest mistakes, but we can get into more of the operations stuff if you want. Like there's much more specific ones. That's my generic entrepreneurial ones.
Well, I'm really curious about the choice that you've made to be fully integrated vertically, because
Yes.
I know you said that, solo entrepreneur who's doing everything from the research and designing the new recipes and the product and so on. And then actually you're cooking it, or baking it or whatever, and have the whole processing facility that you manage yourself, and then you're doing all the marketing and everything. You don't use any co-packers or anything along that lines, right? So talk to me a little bit about that decision, because there's a lot of people that would automatically start to think that, okay, I need to line up a co-packer, I need to get all this stuff done, I might need to talk to somebody on the food scientist or get some help there in developing the recipes and so on too. But you've taken and tackled it all. So was that intentional? Was there, which I presume it was, and why?
Yeah. So I definitely don't suggest that route. There's positives and negatives to both, for sure. I would say if you're looking to build, $100 million company, and it's something that can be kind of ripped off really quickly, you absolutely need to raise, institutional capital and go the co-packer route, 100%. Unless you're beyond meat or impossible, where you've got like a few billion thrown at you and you can build all your facilities, that's a bit different, but most do not. But I would say is, for me, why that was the route we took is, well, one, it allowed me to kind of scale a little bit more organically, a little bit slower, because I didn't have to place POs for, hundreds of thousands of units for something that was unproven in the marketplace. And given that I'm not really an expert in sales and marketing, it's just a different way of doing it. I would say when you're producing, you're more waiting for the industry to pull products from you and have demand until you make it. Whereas if you're like a sales and marketing superstar, which I have some friends that are, they use co-packers, and for them it's very push into the marketplace, because now they have all this pressure and pallets full of product that has to be pushed out. It's a ticking time bomb. So for us, it's a very different way of running your business. And you always have to make sure that they're kind of in tandem together, because if you go out and get, $1 million PO, but your facility can only do, say a few $100,000, that's not going to work well either. So it's very much a different way of building your business. But to go back to why, because our products are so unique and so hand done, nobody really has the equipment to even be able to make it the way we do. I'm sure if we had enough money and there was interest from a co-packer that was like, sure, we'll retrofit some of our equipment to make this, specialized product. But for most people, it's not. And because food is such a low margin game already, and all based on volume, unless, there's this huge demand where they know that there's a demand in making money from making our type of product that's really specialized, they're just not going to do it. So we built our own facility out of necessity, unfortunately. But yes, like good and bad, right? Like there's no one else making our product, but there's negatives to that in regards to scalability.
So I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about your journey on the branding side of things, because where you're at right now, I just give huge kudos. I love the logo. I love the colors. I love the image, the photography that you're using and stuff on the website, as well as in your packaging. It is really well done. And so I imagine that didn't happen overnight. So talk to me a little bit about the journey around the branding, because this is a super important thing that a lot of people get wrong. And so I think there could be some lessons here for people as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely, I wish I could say everything was, thought out to a T, and we did these huge consumer, surveys to try to understand how we were serving our consumer, and, what she looks like and what her age is and what yoga studio she goes to. Like, I know that people really get into the data and the minutia of how to really hit home the messaging. For me, that's always been a tough point, because as I've mentioned numerous times, I'm not a sales and marketing expert. But also because we sell mostly B2B and mostly through distribution and retail, we have that separation from the direct consumer relationship. So because we don't own that data and we don't own that relationship, I have an idea of who buys our product and why, but I've never actually had that direct data resource in like the thousands where I'm able to really look at that and understand completely with confidence, this is who our person is and this is how we should be marketing to them. Yeah. So I caveat that, or let's say preface this conversation, because I think if you're small and starting direct to consumer, you have that data, which is so beneficial. Whereas we didn't really have that doing the archaic route to market, which is through retail, excuse me, and through distribution. So with all that being said, initially when I was starting out in plastic clear pouches with stickers that I designed. Then we evolved to printed packaging when I finally was willing to take that leap, and definitely got the marketing wrong. We focused very much so on the dietary restrictions that we were able to appeal to, such as paleo, keto, because we cover everything. Now that doesn't really appeal to everyone. And a lot of people were confused, or they had the idea, if it was more mainstream, that these types of products wouldn't taste very good because it was like a diet food. And again, we're not for everyone, but I would like to say, I think they taste okay.
Yeah,
so,
they definitely
so
do.
yeah, so that was one huge downfall on our part, unless someone was really diehard into these types of diets, but it could alienate the other people who were kind of dabbling or just wanted a healthy snack. So then flash forward to this new iteration, where we were really trying to just kind of make it fun, make it really lighthearted and colorful, because our product, although we're trying to make real food fun and not for everyone, it's not for everyone, and not everyone thinks real food's fun. It does give you energy. It, obviously makes you feel vibrant. So there were all these types of things that we were trying to play on while still really playing on that nude type of thing, where, as you can see, if you hold it up or someone goes to the website, that, some of the font is a little bit, see-through. It's like nude. So we're really trying to focus on the product and what it is, not what it does for you, is kind of what we were focusing on, if that makes sense.
Completely. And I mean, the name alone, I mean, that's $1 million name right there too. Like, you guys were really creative and I think just really on your game in terms of naming the company, because it's just like that name alone is going to be so valuable, because it explains the product within the name and still has a lot of fun with it. So it's just really cool. So well done there. Yeah. Now, one thing that you did share with me is that you have a 3-month-old baby at home right now. So, yes. So now this is a challenge for female entrepreneurs, especially solopreneurs, basically, or the person who is running everything with the business. So how are you managing this, the pregnancy, and then now having this little human that is needing lots of attention on a very regular schedule? So how do you do this as an entrepreneur?
I'm definitely not doing it well, but I think, as entrepreneurs, we just do the best that we can. That's it. So, I mean, I'd be lying if I made it sound like, everything's great and, the business is growing and we're doing fantastic. It's not. Like, for sure, as in life, right, something has to take the back seat. And, for me right now, I'm focused on trying to get back, because it's only been 3 months. So I had a 77-hour labor that ended in an emergency C-section. So, it took a long time to recover. Had to go back into production 2 weeks after, as I had mentioned, which I probably shouldn't have. But the baby comes with me to work. So one thing I will say as a positive, which a lot of women don't get in their workplaces, even though they get mat leave, which I don't get, but I'm able to bring him, obviously, as the boss. So that's really helpful. We just kind of balance them in the schedule. And my mom, I'm so blessed to have a mom who's retired and loves her grandson. It's the only one. So, she comes every day and kind of we balance off. So she's with him. And then when he needs to be fed and all of that, we kind of balance each other out. That's kind of how we make it work for me. But for sure, like the business, I'd be lying if I didn't say the business has suffered in the last year. Going through pregnancy and everything, right, with my appointments. And, it's for sure suffered. But it doesn't mean that it can't recover. And it doesn't mean that, we can't get back to where we were. And I'll keep in mind too, like we just went through 2 years of shit with COVID also, right? So like we've had a lot, like I feel like just when you think you can't get punched in the face anymore, then the pregnancy comes and it's just like constant. So I think as an entrepreneur, if there's one thing, like it's just resilience, right? And whether it's COVID or pregnancy or whatever it is, these types of hardships are going to keep coming in spades. And it's And it's not necessarily what it is, it's how you deal with it, right? So if it wasn't a 3-month-old, it could be something else, right? And all you can do is pull yourself up, put each pant on each day and get to work and just try your best. That's all you can do.
So what do you do personally to stay positive and to stay resilient? Because that is definitely a theme amongst all successful entrepreneurs, is when they get knocked down, they get back up, right?
Yeah.
And so what is it that you do to really maintain that? And
Really good drugs. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm definitely not saying that. Yeah, no, I don't know. I think it's partially, I'm sure, like your personality, right? So, for me, I'm someone who's extremely stubborn and I will not take no for an answer. And, you have to just kind of keep working at it. And I think at a certain point, like, you're all in and you just have no choice but to make it work, and no one else is going to do it for you. It's not like in a job where there's 100 other people doing your job and you're just a number and you could leave tomorrow and the organization would be fine. Like, if you don't get up and do it, nobody else will. So you have no choice but to make it work. And in regards to optimism, I mean, again, like, your life and your business is what you make it. So no matter how shitty stuff has been in the past, or good, right? It could change tomorrow, right? So you can always make it better. It can always get worse. But you just got to try, right? And there might be opportunity waiting around the corner. You don't know, but there's always something out there for you to work on and to make it better.
so I also want to circle back to what you were talking about in the early days. You weren't asking for help very much, or you weren't networking as much, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm curious if that has changed now, if you have found a network, mentors, coaches, because, you're wearing all the hats. And so I'm just curious how you are able to, I guess, continue to evolve and learn and do what you're doing. Is it just through perseverance, or do you have some network now that you've developed, mentors, or where do you go for some of the knowledge learning, the development that you need to tackle, I guess, on your journey?
Yeah. So, I mean, it would be really dumb if I had just said that was my lesson learned and I was like, but I don't talk to anyone anymore. So definitely, I would say I definitely try. And I've built up a great network of other entrepreneurs too. That just, happened by being in the industry for so long. So that's been great, having other entrepreneurs going through the same stuff, especially in COVID, like, hey, is this really happening to you too? That type of thing. So I'd say that's amazing to have that. The second thing I would say for sure, when I've needed help with, operations or, with finance or these areas where I have gaps, for sure, reaching out, to other people and individuals who are better in those areas than I, definitely has been helpful as well. Could I do better? Sure. I would say, again, I can get very stuck in the day-to-day with operations and putting out fires. Yeah. And when, again, it's only you, it's really tough to kind of step away and have that quiet time. So I think that's one of the things I really need to work on, is like the discipline to really say no to things that are happening internally, and look at the things that you could spend an hour or two on each day that will really come back in spades and build the business. Right. So I think that's something that I'm still working on, if I'm being, blunt. But absolutely, I've built up a good network. But the other thing I would say, just quickly to tie that up, is because I've been in business for so long too, I think sometimes people are surprised, and I kind of have to take a check with their like, but you don't know that yet? or why do you need to ask this question? So I think sometimes now that I've been doing it for so long, it's the reverse issue. It's now like my own confidence, where it's like, I should know this. It looks so stupid that I'm asking someone for help now after being in business for almost 12 years, right? So it's kind of now the reverse issue, where when you're starting out, anybody will open a door for you because you're new and they want to help you. But now they're like, you should know better. You're not that young spring chicken that you were when you were 22. Like, you should know better. So I kind of have to check myself with that as well, I think, and just realize everyone's happy to help usually. And if they're not, go on to the next person.
So now, in terms of your future growth, then what do you think is going to be the most important thing that you're going to have to overcome or implement within your business in order to take your business to the next level that you want to get to?
Yeah. So for me, I know I'm very verbose, so I'll try and wrap this up. So two things, two
Okay.
things would be, so myself again, and like after doing this for so many years to continually get knocked down, I think, and still, again, now with the baby and all this, to still get up every day and be optimistic. I know I probably sound like it, and I am overall. But I think the defeatist attitude, I think that's the number one thing, is confidence, getting up and realizing you still control your future. You can do it. All is not lost. So
Yeah.
I think that is one of my biggest challenges right now, is after this many years and not having a co-founder to kind of, amp me up every once in a while and vice versa. That's definitely a challenge. And then number two, I'd say, because there have been so many challenges and being a solopreneur, never raising money and just growing it organically, if I did now want to go out, now that it's probably better timing for our products versus 10 years ago, to go out now and try to raise capital, whether from an angel or an institutional investor, they would look at our P&L for the last few years, COVID or not, and say, this looks like shit, and we're not going to finance you, just because there has been so many challenges that I've had to see. So they obviously just see the numbers, and they don't see the person who's been doing it all on their own. And had to overcome a launch in the US, had to overcome a pack change, had to overcome losing distribution, had to overcome all, like, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Never being able to afford a real employee, never being able to, afford this type of expertise that could help take it to the next level, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that is another huge challenge, is if I really wanted to scale it and I really wanted to move forward, if I was starting today with a fresh slate, I would have a much easier time going out and raising money than I would with all the baggage that I have. As weird as that sounds, because I've obviously built up brand equity, I've built up consumer awareness, I have a proven track record, we've tested the products, I've wasted all my money instead of institutional money making these mistakes, right? So you'd think there'd be all these strengths, but it's the complete opposite. When you've been in business so long, it's looked at as a negative. And so I think that's been also a huge challenge, is I want to build this business to be, 20, 50 million, whatever it is, but it takes money to do that. And unfortunately, it's become really difficult as a solo female founder. I mean, I won't go into all the stats, but we know that there's still gender bias, right? Especially when you are a solopreneur, to raising money. And then also when you have all that history and baggage, it's even harder. So I think that's the next huge challenge, is if we did want to actually build this and go from the next level, how do we do that with everything that's already been a challenge without the proper financing?
Well, thank you so much, Julia, for sharing, all the lessons you've had, your journey, the stories, some of the struggles, and so on. I wish you just all the best success. The product is just phenomenal. And so it definitely deserves to be in everybody's mouth across the country, because it is something that's healthy and tasty. And it's just, not packed with all that garbage that we have. And this is a huge issue with us. Our healthcare system is overtaxed, and one of the biggest reasons is it's because of the shit that we put into our bodies. And so if we can solve that part of it, and you're a key cog in that machine. So I certainly hope that you have great success.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay. So everybody, if you're interested in checking out Nude Food, what's the best way to reach you, I guess, Julia, or find you guys in the stores or whatnot?
Yeah, totally. So I'm pretty easy to find. So we're on the website, nudefood.com, but it's spelled weird. I always joke I'm illiterate. It's nudfud.com. If you want to find out more about my story and products and how to order, if interested. And then to contact me, it comes to me as info at nudefood.com would be my email. And I do read every single email, but I don't always reply right away, just given how busy I am. But I do read every email. So yeah, if anyone wants to get in touch, I'm very easy to find.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Julia. And so for you who are listening today, if you are interested in checking out our archived episodes, head over to amplifyyourbusiness.ca and you'll find them all there. And if you happen to be an entrepreneur who has an interesting story that you'd like to share as well, fill out the application form there and you could be a future guest of Amplify Your Business. So until the next episode, I hope everybody has a prosperous day.